You had your chance and then you blew it.
That is the most absurd statement of the year.
Nice. Nice.
Oh, baby.
I'm in my zone, I'm feeling it.
Live from West St. Paul Studios, it's time for MinneZona Sports Live with DJ Matty C and Paul the Shield Vogt.
And this is MinneZona Sports Live. We are back. Yes, episode 146 episodes of MinneZona Sports Live. We're happy you've joined us. And without further ado, I'm your host, DJ Matty C, a.k.a. Matt Cal, a.k.a. Cal, a.k.a. Matty C, etc., etc., etc. And all the way from Granite City Studios in St. Cloud, Minnesota, Paul Vogt, the Shield. What's going on there, Shield?
It has been, first off, I'm just hearing that now officially for now the second time you're talking, of course, Granite City Studios. Still a little weird. It's going to take some getting used to, but at least we're talking here. We're talking draft stuff as well on top of playoff action as well for the Wolves and the Wild. I actually had a little bit of a chance today to get a glimpse at the future for the Granite City Lumberjacks today. They hosted and had their NA3HL draft today as well, so get a chance to see see some of the future Lumberjacks if they end up making their way to Granite City, and well, hopefully get to see them play over the next few years. So that was a little fun time to sit down and get a little preview of what's in store for Granite City defending the Fraser Cup here going into 2023-24.
All I can say is back-to-back. That's what I'm
Yes,
thinking.
sir.
So
Run it back. Absolutely.
Run it back. Back-to-back. All that stuff. So, yeah, there's a lot, like you said, Voldy, a lot going on, especially tonight, which is crazy in itself. You know, we have our Minnesota Wild. We have our Minnesota Timberwolves. We have a lot of draft talk heating up, and there's been, especially these past 24 hours, there's been a lot of talk. There's been a lot of talk about Trey Lance, so we will get into that with ARA. But tonight we're doing Infinity rankings, and we're doing best draft, best Vikings who have been drafted by the Minnesota Vikings who have been drafted. There's a lot. I've gone through 6. I've kind of mixed and matched a little bit because there's a lot of recency with a lot of this, and there's, you know, obviously back in the day type of thing. So it's a little bit of a mix, and you know, you can give your thoughts on it. So we got a lot of cool stuff coming through tonight. So, yeah, let's just get it going. I think it's time to get it going with some tater-tot hot take. We got the Wolves, we got the Wild. Oh, I'm so stoked. So
let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's get it with some tater-tot. Ooh, hot take.
Fresh out of the oven, it's Tater Tot Hot Take.
All right, welcome back. It is time for some Tater Tot Hot Take. The first playoff team we start off with tonight is the Minnesota Wild. The Wild beat the Dallas Stars on, was it Monday? Yes, Monday.
Yes.
3-2. And 2 overtimes. Not 1, but 2 overtimes. So claps out to the Wild. Ryan Hartman with the game-winning goal. There's a lot of things to talk about with this game, Voldy.
Yeah.
So, for one, huge win. If you're able to at least steal one from a very talented team in the Dallas Stars during this homestand, this 2-game homestand, you're in good shape. So, Voldy, what are your thoughts on that victory on Monday night?
Well, first off, I didn't even know that they won in double overtime. I thought I woke up in the middle of the night, saw a message saying that they lost 5-2. I went to sleep when it was 2-2 after 2 periods. So I thought, man, they really dropped the ball in the third period, giving up 3 goals. But then actually seeing it was 3-2 in double overtime, I was more than confused. But for the first 2 periods I did watch, second period, you know, the Wild had their troubles. And especially when you go into the playoffs, too, you got to stay out of the penalty box. And you allow Dallas an extra man, and especially on the power play too, they hurt them really quick. They scored very quick on the power play. There are only 2 goals in the night, which came fairly quickly in that second period as well. But luckily enough, you know, the Wild were able to get that breakaway goal from Sam Steele. Kirill Kaprizov gets a nice goal too as well. But with Ryan Hartman finishing off in double overtime, that was great to see, because the Wild can, you know, obviously get stay out of the penalty box and, you know, find ways to capitalize, and, you know, scoring 5-on-5s can be huge for them, especially with the overall makeup they have of this team too, and especially going with the young goaltender and Philip Gustafsson too, who definitely held his own in that first contest as well, going up against the likes of Jake Ottinger as well for Dallas. I mean, Ottinger looked very well in that first contest too, but, you know, hats off to both the goaltenders, but obviously a good situation with the likes of Ryan Hartman getting that game winner in double overtime. It was just good to see. You know, there were a few things as well that definitely did not help, you know, the Wild, but definitely overall, you know, it's good to get out of the win, get out of Dallas with at least the game 1 victory. I know they're going for it tonight as well, so they definitely got a few things that need to tighten up for that too.
So before I get into the nitty gritty here, the one thing that I think mostly Dallas fans have been talking about is that big hit that Matt Dumba put on Pavelski. And to be honest with you, I thought it was a clean hit. Voldy, I believe you tweeted it was a clean hit as well.
Yep.
But I can see where they're coming from by saying, oh, that was dirty. But, I mean, if you look at the replay, yeah, for sure. But, like, if, they turn around, well, if it happened to us, it's kind of one of those things where it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to say,
right,
it was illegal or if it wasn't legal, things like that. So, I mean, it really doesn't matter. Per se, if you're the Minnesota Wild fans, yeah, you're going to defend that. If you're Dallas, you're going to say it was dirty. I mean, that's just how it is. But for one, they're just using that as motivation, which I can see. Mm-hmm. But also, let's not forget that a former Minnesota Wild player, Ryan Suter, had a couple of cheap shots on Kaprizov there.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of their way of saying, like, hey, if you mess with our guy, we'll mess with yours. Maybe there's some bad blood, things like that. So there's that aspect of going into this game, too, that I think we're going to see. There's going to be a lot more aggressive hits. There's going to be a lot more aggressiveness from both sides. So hopefully, I know the Wild are prepared for it. But, it's going to be that kind of series, and I think it could possibly go to 7 games.
Let's hope not.
6. Let's hope not. And
no.
if the Wild can put them to bed early, I mean, that's fine with me. So we'll see what happens there. But, Voldy...
Matt,
please,
going back to the physicality of the series as well. That's just what you're going to get here with this Dallas matchup too. And going back to the hits specifically as well, if you look at, I know we've probably seen the replay at least a few hundred times like myself, the way that it kind of broke down as well. Yes, Pavelski got rid of the puck and it was out of his way as well. But the way Dumba is coming into the frame as well, he's kind of crunched down a little bit.
Sure.
So it's not like he was at his full height and left his feet to hit Pavelski shoulder, with the shoulder as well. He was crouched down, so his natural momentum lifted him up. He didn't leave his feet. Obviously, there was plenty of time. I shouldn't say there was plenty of time, but there was time for Pavelski to react to the hit as well. Yes, it caught him. This is like the third big hit that's knocked him out of some games as well, going back to 2019, I think even 2018, maybe 2016, the time before that. But Joe Pavelski has not had a good run in the playoffs as well for his career too. But and obviously with Ryan Suter also taking a couple of whacks at Kaprizov, and Ryan Reeves knows that he's going to have to answer the bell, and he has come out and said that if it happens to be that way, he knows his job, he knows what he has to do. But if that heavyweight tilt has to come out like that, I think both will be more than comfortable to answer the bell as well. And I think there is plenty in store for that to come, especially with the series that's going to be shifted to Minneapolis here, I should say to St. Paul here after tonight's contest.
No kidding. And I like what you said with the physicality and how you explained with the hit too, and I think I've seen it at least like 10 times after it and whatnot, and I don't see anything that's specifically dirty about it. But another interesting development in that game, and I asked this to the zoners too, Brock Faber. Wow, what a guy that literally was about to win a national championship with the Gophers. Unfortunately, psych, right? He goes to the Minnesota Wild, and they thought, he'll play a little bit here and there, just kind of learn everything.
Mm-hmm.
But claps out to that young man. Claps out to that young man. Because he has been fully invested, and he has been very effective for this team, coming just right from college and right into this game, making a absolutely game-saving, in his, technically he wasn't the goalie, but a game-saving save there.
Absolutely.
And, I'm just very impressed by the way that he's played. He's only 20 years old, and he's playing like that in the playoffs. You deserve a lot of respect for that. So, Voldy, I know he's a Gopher, but, you can't help but respect how he played on Monday.
Yeah, especially filling in for John Klingberg as well for some crucial play defensively. I mean, he held his own in that contest, too. I mean, there were a lot of loose pucks and obviously turnovers on the defensive side that led for, him to have to make some crucial plays for the Wild, too. And he certainly held his own, especially him being a young guy and not very accustomed to the NHL play as of yet. I mean, only as, probably just a handful of games under his belt since coming over from the Gophers too after losing the national championships. Had to throw that in there one more time. But yeah, it speaks to the fact the amount of depth that this team has too, and especially with him filling in for such a very positive defensive player in John Klingberg too. Him sitting out for at least for last night's contest, possibly tonight as well too. But have him as a pluggable piece in the lineup. Maybe that's going to help out and maybe move him down a little bit further as well on the defensive pairings. At least get him into the game as well for Brock Faber. And it's been very good to see here, especially early on, and with especially that late blocked shot that he had that could have, obviously, like you said, had saved the game too for the Wild.
Right, and if you can do that within that short amount of time, I mean, you're doing something right. And I think Billy G, got to give credit to Billy G for pulling the trigger that quick on him. So one more takeaway, then we'll move over to the Wolves here. Going into this game too, like we said, we talked about the physicality, we talked about Brock Faber, but I mean, just kind of the way that this team has to, look at this game is, if they drop this game, I won't be too discouraged. I imagine you wouldn't either. I imagine the Zoners wouldn't either, because
right.
It's going to be that, like, there's not going to be a sweep. I mean, we'd love to. Maybe they will. I don't know.
Who knows?
There's a lot of things that could happen, but I doubt that that's what would be the case. But I would say, another thing to think about too is Eck, Joel Eriksson Eck. Having him back, I think, will help, but I don't know where things are. I think he was skating or something like that he might be back when they come back to Minnesota. So if they add him back, then they're in good shape. But, I mean, as it stands right now, Voldy, are the Wild going to win Game 2 against the Stars here tonight?
The numbers aren't very kind for the Wild, especially in Game 2 of a playoff series. They're just 3-12 in Game 2s of a playoff series. So winning Game 1 was absolutely crucial, and that's what they did. They won Game 1. They found a way to win, and that's what the Wild have done here, especially off and on throughout the season as well. When they've had their big win streaks, when they've struggled as well, they've found ways to win and get points at the same time. So I think really everything's starting to come to a head here at this point for the Wild. You'd like to have Joel Eriksson Ek back out on the ice too. Him slowly but surely making his way back may be the absolute best opportunity for the Wild here to seize the moment, especially with Kirill Kaprizov. He missed a bunch of the regular season as well here in the back half of the season, but he came back, a handful of games before the end of the regular season, got his legs right back under him. He starts out the playoffs with a goal too. So that's going to be, once he gets fully going as well, acclimated back into the full swing of everything, it's going to be, off and running here for the Wild. So if they win Game 2 tonight, I mean, there's going to be very little to stop this team. If you can take 2 games on the road to go back to your home ice and at least have the home ice advantage, absolutely huge. But at the same time, I mean, the numbers do say 3-12 all time in the second game of a playoff series. I wouldn't be surprised if they drop it tonight, but if they played the way that they did on Monday night, I think they got a very good shot at taking both games in Dallas.
Well, I agree with you on that, because, I mean, anytime that you're up 2-0, the thing that I worry about is that if you drop the next game at home,
right,
that's something that that's something that you. I mean, that's down the line, and I don't want to think like that. So let's not go down that route. But I think all signs are pointing to them maybe dropping this one tonight. But I do want to give that glimmer of hope to say, you know what? I think that they if they win this game tonight, I think they've got a strong chance to win this series. If they lose tonight, I mean, obviously it sucks, but at the same time, I'm not losing a lot of confidence if they can, win the series. So,
Right.
like you said with the numbers aren't in their favor, but we'll see what happens. So, let's go Wild, and unfortunately, I hope. Well, let's not go into 2 overtimes tonight and not go to 1
Let's
a.m.
not.
So and also this is a message to the NHL and the NBA. Please stop scheduling games at 8:30 or 9 o'clock Central Time. This doesn't work for us. They don't give a damn about Minnesota sports, and it pisses me off.
It's not like Dallas is in Arizona. You can't play the game at 7:30. I mean, what the heck?
So we're kind of peeved about that. So
Yeah, exactly.
we're gonna from the ice to the hardwood floor. The Minnesota Timberwolves. Woof. That game against the Nuggets. Yeah, not good. A lot of factors into this. One, you have a lot of turmoil with this team, Voldy and Zoners.
You think?
Yeah, y'all think. And, there's a lot going on. But one thing, and I think we knew this going into the series because we know, Denver's, people like, oh, yeah, we want Denver. We can take down, they're not as good as people make them out to be. Well, they kind of showed why they might be finals contenders and beat the brakes off the Wolves. Jokic, I think, is a problem. I think you got to have a plan with that, especially if you have Gobert and Towns. I mean, Towns has got to step up against a guy like that, and they got blown out and they bullied him. I mean, honestly, I watched a lot of those highlights, and Jokic is pretty much just dismantling Towns, Gobert, and you got to have a plan for that. Jamal Murray, another guy that's been really quick to coming back from a gruesome injury and playing really well. So these Wolves got to get it going here in Game 2.
Exactly.
So Voldy, this team I'm really not confident in, and honestly, if they lose tonight to Denver, I almost think it's over, and I truly believe that because there's not cohesiveness. There's not a lot of teamwork going on. It's almost a little bit more of hero ball at this point.
Yeah.
Whereas the Nuggets, they play as a team. And the Wolves, they can play as a team. The thing is, everyone's got to be on the same page, and they're not. So they had more turnovers than missed shots, and missed shots, I should say. With Cat and Ant had okay, but he was okay, but he got into foul trouble. So there's that. So Voldy, I mean, is this pretty much? I mean, obviously, all games in a playoff series are must win, but is this game tonight for the Wolves especially very important for them if they're ever gonna make this a series? What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, especially when you come off Game 1 and looking as unprepared as they did, this is definitely one of those you look at as a must-win. I know it's only Game 2 of a best-of-7 series, but you go down 2-0, especially against Denver, and their best players, an MVP caliber player that's won MVP. Is he the reigning MVP? I know he won it 2 years ago, I think, or in at least the last couple of years. But Jokic is definitely a problem on both ends of the floor too. But Cat with turnover issues, Anthony Edwards, needing as many shots as he does points to get his team going, and then obviously just the overall ability of Denver. I mean, they shot over 40% from 3. That's a problem to begin with as well. And if you can't rebound and you can't get to, you clean up your turnovers, you're on the outside looking in for the Timberwolves too. So I definitely see that as, I mean, they had 54 rebounds in that win for Denver. I mean, that's just absurd to begin with. And it was definitely not good because they had a hard time even getting back on defense, the Timberwolves. I mean, they were outscored 16-3 on the fast break as well with those, transition points. I mean, that's just not good as well. If you can't rebound, you can't get back on defense, it's going to be a long, long night for you out on the floor. And that's what it looked like in Game 1 with, the Nuggets just running all over the Timberwolves in that contest.
Right. And I like the way that this article puts it. You know, Cat has to dominate offensively. Gobert's got to be healthier, more scoring from Conley, and Ant being efficient. And let's not forget that Ant is still, I mean, he's still a young pup. I mean, no pun intended, I will say. So we got that going for us.
Exactly.
But, we have to understand that this is now Ant's team. And we've said this before. We've talked about this numerous times on the show, especially with Munson here too, that this has to be Anthony Edwards' team at some point. And the fact that, and I hate to rip on Cat because here's the thing. I like Cat. I think he's a very good player. But you know what I think he lacks is his leadership skills with this team. And I just think a lot of the time when you're getting paid to be the guy to kind of rally the troops and you're getting paid all this money to be the guy, and when we don't see that leadership out there on the court, that's what concerns me. Gobert, obviously, with that situation, I'm not liking the things that we've been seeing. I'm certainly not liking the things from play, especially, players saying that he's overrated, things like that. He only blocks shots and whatnot. So I think that experiment has to be over here in the offseason. But more specifically, this game tonight is so crucial that if they lose, they're probably going to get swept. I hate to say it. If I'm being completely honest, they're probably getting swept. And I don't like saying that. I hope that's not the case, and I hope they prove me wrong, because if they get by the Nuggets and if they can do something, here we go. So, and I think Case agrees with me too. So we're in good shape there. So here's my guess tonight here, Voldy. Okay, and then you mentioned, before we get into that, you mentioned them being out-rebounded. They should not be being out-rebounded by them.
Shouldn't.
You have Cat, you have Gobert, you have height, you have to box out. How are you losing those battles? You shouldn't be.
I don't know.
That's frustrating. But Voldy, I don't see them winning tonight. I think they're going to lose, and like I said, I think they're probably going to get swept, and I hope I'm wrong. I really do, and I'm trying to be respectful, but based on what I've seen from this team, there's too much inconsistency, and the Denver Nuggets play like this, and they play as a team, whereas the Wolves are kind of like 1, 2. I won't do the middle finger, but they're kind of like that. So, Voldy, what do you think?
Right. I mean, it's hard to have any confidence in the way the Timberwolves have been going, especially the last couple of weeks too, with infighting, players injuring themselves while trying to get back to the locker room in frustration. And now you have this huge blowout loss in game 1 of the best of 7, especially with, Denver, like we said earlier too. I mean, they're a team that's looking to compete in the finals. I mean, it's already a very loaded Western Conference, and I mean, the defending champions and Golden State are in the same conference. It's, if you want to get there, you're gonna have to go right through them in order to make it to the finals. This is going to be a tough one too. You basically take everything that happened and went wrong on the first game, and you have to flip it the other way. You got to get more offensive prowess from Cat. You got to get more efficiency out of Ant. You got to rebound the ball. Gobert and Cat got to do their thing as well. You got to get more contribution as well from Mike Conley too. Especially that's the reason why we brought him in, to help facilitate the offense a little bit more and get more production out of him. I think you got to have all these things, kind of a perfect storm of everything. And then Denver's just got to flat out lose the game to begin with. So all those things got to go the Timberwolves' way in order to get a win here. But wouldn't be surprised they fall tonight, ends up being a sweep in the series.
So we'll see what happens, but
we'll see.
I'm not feeling confident, and the thing is like if I don't feel confident in something, usually it turns out the other way. So hopefully it's reverse psychology here, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. All right. With that being said, after the show, watch the games. Hopefully the puck will drop at the right time. Probably not. or the ball will tip at the right time, but probably not. So after, just grab a beverage, sit down, watch the game, and call in sick. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't tell anyone to do that. So,
Lots of coffee the next morning.
Right. So,
Lots of coffee.
Yeah. All right. Well, Voldy, let's get to some Infinity rankings. And I do want to do kind of I know we do shout-outs at the end of the show, but I do want to give a shout-out to Mama Callahan because I texted her while we were doing, while you were talking, and I was listening, but we needed to get this bet ready for Infinity rankings. So I appreciate Mama Callahan doing that for me and whatnot. So we're ready to go for some Infinity rankings. We're talking about the top NFL draft prospects that the Vikings have drafted. And so we'll do my top 6. We'll give your thoughts. Voldy will give his thoughts and whatnot. And so you know the deal. We're putting on the gauntlet. We're ready to roll. It is time. It is. We haven't done this in like 3 months, I think, from what I
No, it's
looked.
been a while, yeah.
It's been a while. So it's time for some Infinity rankings.
While many have power rankings, none have captured them all. It's time for Matty C's Infinity Rankings.
All right, it is time for Infinity rankings, and yeah, you love it.
Just a prime example of buying stupid stuff with adult money. That gauntlet right there. I could buy this because I have real adult money.
Well, it's true, and the thing is that this thing is so awesome. It has been something I've wanted for a long time. And now that I have it, and now that we use it for the segment, it's perfect.
Yes.
It's perfect for it. So we'll set this down for now, and obviously once we get to our 6. Because the thing is, it does hurt my hand a little bit.
Yeah, I bet.
It's big. So anyway, let's get into it. So my top 6 for the Vikings, who they have drafted throughout the years. Okay, so let's reveal it here. Boom! Here we go. So, starting off with number 6, and this one is very close, near and dear to a lot of Vikings fans' hearts, and that being one, Randall McDaniel, one of the best guards in the league for the longest time. Voldy and Zoners, and he was just instrumental in the way that the Vikings, played. He was drafted round 1 in the 1988 NFL draft. Total seasons as a starter in the NFL, 14. Oh, by the way, 12 Pro Bowls, pretty good. Oh, first team All-Pro 7 times. So, NBD there, and you have to give him a lot of credit for what he did as a Minnesota Viking, and being on that offensive line from 1988 to 1999 was quite impressive. So, you can make a case for him to maybe be a little bit more up on the list, but I also want to give respect where respect is due with other potential Vikings on this list as well. So there's a lot you can argue. So Zoners, let us know what you guys think, and we'll go from there. So I got number 6, Randall McDaniel. Number 5, the one, the only, Adrian Peterson. Now, this is an interesting story, Voldy, because I watched that draft, and, me being kind of, still learning, the NFL game, things like that. I was still a middle school kid. I didn't really understand. But I wanted them to draft Brady Quinn so badly that I wanted them to get a quarterback of the future. And my dad was like, I'd go with the Peterson guy. I mean, why not? He was really good at Oklahoma, but but I was like, he's got injury issues. I don't know if he can, do this and things like that. Well, boy, was I ever wrong, because Adrian Peterson
Has Papa Callahan ever steered you wrong on stuff like this?
He really hasn't.
I don't think so.
That's a good point. He really hasn't. And I like I said, I just got to listen to him more. anymore. That's probably why.
Exactly.
So, I mean, number 5, Adrian Peterson. You can make the argument, that he should be put higher, which, again, there's definitely that that you can put that forth. But I believe Adrian Peterson at that spot's pretty good for me. All right, let's go to number 4. This is, quite recent, but Justin Jefferson. Now, this is just a starting point. The reason why I have him at 4. But I want to say this. Let's see, as his career goes on. His first 3 years are one of the best in the NFL.
Ever.
If not the best. And this past season, I just think that he's just been very, very consistent these past 3. It's like, he might have a sophomore slump. Well, he hasn't. His first 3 seasons have been nothing short of phenomenal. He's about to get paid this big contract and whatnot.
Money.
And he deserves to be on this list right now because of his contributions to the Minnesota Vikings. And he'll be grittying, hopefully, as a Minnesota Viking. But let's hopefully get the deal done soon. So, Justin Jefferson goes number 4 for now. And this could, this probably would change in the next couple of years. So, all right, let's go to number 3. He's a judge, so there's that.
The
honorable Alan Page. Alan Page at number 3. You can't really argue with this because he played in the NFL for 15 seasons, 9 Pro Bowls, 5 All-Pro seasons, round 1 in 1967. So he's that good. Purple People Eaters. There's nothing better than with him, especially being somewhat of the leader of that. Him, Carl Eller, and whatnot, and they're just really that good. And I believe that he's one of the best of all time, especially, what he's not only done on the field but off the field. So the honorable Alan Page, giving respect where respect is due. So number 3 goes to Alan Page, and number 2. Now, I think people might think, what are you doing? Why do you have him at number 2 when he should be number 1? Well, Randy Moss, pull your 84 jerseys out. I'm back home. All that deal. The reason why I have him at number 2, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts, that the Vikings made all those teams in front pay for not taking Randy Moss. And where the Vikings took him is very similar to Justin Jefferson in some respect, or actually almost exactly like Justin Jefferson in some respect. But he's at number 2, 6 Pro Bowls, 4 All-Pros, round 1, 1998, total seasons as starter in the NFL, 12. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. He's one of the top Vikings of all time. But the fact that he only was really with the team till 2004? So 1998 to 2004. That's a good amount of time. Don't get me wrong, but
he's productive.
He's very productive, and Randy, Randy would be Randy. But the thing is,
then he had that 2010 season as well.
Yeah, the 2010 season. Yeah,
the return.
The return, yeah, or lack thereof.
Lack thereof.
But but obviously Moss, still had a little bit in the tank and whatnot. But the longevity wasn't there much. There's no doubt he was the most talented guy from that time period, and he's one of the top Vikings of all time. But I think 2's at the perfect is the perfect spot for him. So we'll go with that. So number 1, you got to go with Fran. You got to go with Fran Tarkenton. Back then, he was selected not in round 1, but round 3.
Yeah.
And he was 18 seasons in the NFL, 9 Pro Bowls, 1 All-Pro, but they didn't really keep track of All-Pro as much as they used to. But if you put in the longevity with the Minnesota Vikings and him, leaving after the Vikings didn't sign him and then bringing him back, and them leading, But Fran Tarkenton, the numbers are there. He is the top Minnesota quarterback of all time. Obviously, I haven't seen, or I didn't get to see his games. I wasn't born yet, but Pop Callahan has, and he said he was unbelievable. And the fact that he wasn't able to win a Super Bowl with the Minnesota Vikings is tough, but he's definitely taken them there, and I give him a lot of credit. So I have him at number 1. So I'll have you guys kind of look at this list. So starting at 6, Randall McDaniel. Number 5, Adrian Peterson. Number 4, Justin Jefferson. Number 3, Alan Page. Number 2, Randy Moss. And number 1, Fran Tarkenton. So, Voldy, Zoners, what do you think? Go ahead, Voldy.
I'm looking at this list, and it's hard to move anybody into a different direction, because if you do that, you're basically disgracing the guys behind them as well. The only thing that I would probably do is flip AP and Justin Jefferson, purely on the sample size. Obviously Justin Jefferson has been going from the very moment he was drafted to the Vikings as well. Adrian Peterson, he was the guy that came in after Randy Moss as well. He was going to be the face of the franchise. He was going to do this. He was going to do that. And he held his own. He was, the best player in the NFL. Obviously, he won MVP, the last non-quarterback player to win the MVP back in 2012, a year after tearing his ACL, less than a year after tearing his ACL. And he comes back with a vengeance, too. Number 1 being Fran Tarkenton, obviously playing the most important position and being, there from the very beginning of the Minnesota Vikings, 1961. That's the first year of the Minnesota Vikings. And he wasn't even a first-round pick. How about the 2 other guys that went before him as well, if it was that way how it turned out with the draft that year for the Vikings, and the fact that he was a round 3 find. I mean, you could put him as the biggest draft steal for the Vikings as well. And I've got a few other names I could throw out there too of just, finds out there that ended up working the Vikings credit too. And he was, obviously the best quarterback with his longevity and obviously in, Minnesota Vikings history as well. And I mean, his tenure alone speaking to the fact that he played quarterback in a time where quarterbacks weren't very well protected, and they didn't last as long as they probably should have, especially with the amount of hits that they took. But the fact that he played 18 seasons as well in the NFL too in that time, I mean, just a real a workhorse to say the least. But then you look at obviously too with Alan Page, everything that he did on the field, off the field, Adrian Peterson, Justin Jefferson, Randall McDaniel too. I mean, the fact that we're talking an offensive lineman in the top 6 of obviously with the Infinity rankings too, with all other positions that have more of an impact, but a player that's still widely regarded, widely respected. I mean, how often do you see an offensive lineman's jersey that people are proud to wear at an NFL game? It's very rare, and you could definitely find a few McDaniel jerseys still to this day that are still proud to be worn out as well. I mean, there's a few other names that come to mind too with players that should be put in this category too. I mean, the first one that came to mind too, we're talking all-time draft picks, purely on the fact that he was a steal, and we've obviously gotten the most return out of him, Dalvin Cook. True. I mean, the fact that we were able to get him. I still remember where I was, when I was sitting, and I saw that the Vikings got Dalvin Cook in the draft. I'm like, this is going to be the steal of the draft. This is going to be working out immensely for the Vikings too. You throw other guys out there. I mean, purely on the flash in the pan, pun intended, with Cordero Patterson. Obviously, maybe not as strong a numbers as we wanted to see out of him, but he was a very good, impactful player early on in his career too. But you throw out some other names too: Chris Dolman, Bobby Bell, Ron Yari, even big Kevin Williams too, plugging up the middle there for the Vikings too. I mean, there's a lot of names that can be thrown out there, but with these 6 that we have, I mean, you can't be mad at any one of those players. Right.
And another name that, I think should be honorable mention and could be, I think probably is 7. Dirty Harry. Harry the
Harrison
Hitman.
Smith. Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
another one that we thought of. So shout out to J-Man. He said, can't argue with your list, but Hitman Smith has to be top 10. And I agree with you 100%. I think he's up there. A name that I would probably consider a little bit, but probably not on the Infinity rankings, Stephon Diggs. Okay? Fifth round guy. And got hurt as previous.
Another draft steal.
And another draft steal. So there's a lot to be said with that. Daniil Hunter, I not fully committed with on that. Everson Griffin, you could make a case somewhat, a little bit. I'm just thinking of recent Vikings and whatnot. But
Kyle Rudolph.
Yep, Kyle Rudolph, Ahmad Rashad. That's another name. That's another.
You mean
name
the basketball guy, Ahmad Rashad?
Yeah, that played for the Vikings and was really good. Sammy White.
He was a football player?
Yeah.
Like the vodka guy who used to play football?
Yeah, exactly. Chad Greenway, another one too. I'm glad you mentioned the vodka guy. So, yep, Jared says Greenway is up there. Yep, we agree with you on that. So, I'd say, it's guys like that, and you can mix and match how you want, and obviously you can talk about the worst draft guys. I don't know, did we do that yet? I feel like we have, but...
We've mentioned some guys in the past, I think.
Like
I don't
Troy
know if we've done a full... Troy Williamson.
Treadwell,
yeah.
Mega Quan. What was another bad one?
Christian Ponder.
Christian, yeah. Yeah, please don't get Glancy going on that, please. And then there was another guy, Erasmus
Chris
James. Cook. I don't know if you remember
Erasmus
that.
James, here you go.
He just didn't really do anything, to be honest. But so you could go through bust. But the list that I have here, I think is acceptable, and you can definitely make arguments. And another name that's on this list that I had that I looked up that I think probably deserves it too, Carl Eller. Part of the purple. I know I mentioned it before, but he's definitely, I think, top 10 as well. So you can't not put him in there. Jim Marshall's another guy.
Jim Marshall, yep.
That's another guy that you can think of too. And Ben Lieber, I'm just kidding.
Wasn't he San Diego?
You're right. He
was drafted by San Diego.
He was.
He started in San Diego. I know that for sure.
But he shouted us out, so I figured I'd shout.
It's true.
That too. And he's still living. He's still living in Minnesota.
Doing Twin Cities Live.
Yep, and K fan, so he's doing quite well.
Exactly. Keeping quite busy.
Yeah, very, very, very much so. So, take a look at the rankings. If you agree, you disagree, let us know. There's a lot. I mean, if we did top 10 famous list or something like that, we could definitely add all those names on there. So, I think this was a fun one, and who knows, we'll probably revisit this at another point in time. So, that's what I got. But I think those guys, should be on the Infinity rankings, and we used all the stones. That's all we have to use, and we're inevitable. That's all I gotta say. So, as the sound goes through,
my God,
gotta love it. Gotta love it.
I think it's just ridiculous.
But it's ridiculously awesome. That's awesome.
Oh my gosh.
So, but anyway, that'll do it for Infinity rankings this week. Let's do some ARA. Voldy, we kind of alluded to this a little bit at the beginning of the show and kind of here and there. Trey Lance Vikings talk, which is maybe becoming a reality now. I don't know. We'll see. So we got that, and then we got Dan Snyder possibly on his way out. Oh, I can't wait for that one too. So we got a lot coming up with ARA this week. So let's get it going with some absurd or approve.
It's time for everyone's favorite segment, Absurd or Approved.
All right, it is time for Absurd or Approved. So, Voldy, why don't you rattle them off for us, please?
So we're getting closer towards the NFL draft here in the next couple of weeks, and a lot more trade talks are starting to come place. concerning our Minnesota Vikings and quite possibly maybe looking at the future at a certain position as well. One of them being the quarterback position. So currently on the depth chart, we've got Kirk Cousins, obviously QB1, Nick Mullins on the QB chart. Apparently that's not good enough for most people as well. And there is one place that's having a little bit of a quarterback logjam in many areas as well, that being San Francisco. Some rumors been floating around a little bit. Obviously, what does San Francisco do with Trey Lance? Obviously coming off a bad leg injury that shut him down, and welcome the world to Brock Purdy into our periphery as NFL watchers as well. But they did also sign San Francisco, that is Sam Darnold as well, to get in that QB room. So it's safe to say there's a little bit of a logjam is definitely an understatement as well. Now, we do know that obviously San Francisco did draft Trey Lance fairly high on the on the rankings as well, for him to get into that position to be the heir apparent to Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, Jimmy G's now in Las Vegas, so you've got Trey Lance, you've got Brock Purdy, and you've got also Sam Darnold, who's looking like to be the starter going into this season too, but a lot of things to be said. Now there's some rumors been floating around that quite possibly maybe some trade talks or certain situations that would line up for the Minnesota Vikings to get the Marshall, Minnesota native and Trey Lance, along with some picks to be coupled with San Francisco and also the Philadelphia Eagles as well. So would it be absurd or approved, DJ Man, to see that should the Vikings make a trade, whether it be on draft day, before draft day, to get Trey Lance as their future quarterback as well for the franchise?
Well, here's what I'll say. I don't think there's a specific timetable that they need. Like, if they really need to get this done, they can take all the time in the world. But I could possibly see this being a draft day move. Now, a lot of people have some thoughts about this. Like you said, there's the proposed 3-team trade by Bill Barnwell, and involving the Vikings, the Niners, the Eagles, and that would involve, and I've sent this to people, and you as well, Voldy, Vikings would get Trey Lance in that deal, a 3rd-round pick from San Fran, and a 6th-round pick from San Fran, and then a 2nd from Philadelphia. Now, the 49ers would get the 1st-round pick from the Vikings, so they'd be at 23, I would believe, and then Nick Mullins. So Eagles back to the 49ers.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the Eagles would get a couple picks, but we don't need to go and spend like a 4th round and a 3rd-round pick and another 3rd-round pick for the Eagles. So they're not really losing much on that. But if they were to do that deal, I'd do it in a heartbeat. The reason why I say that is because you have the 2nd-round pick, you have the 3rd-round pick, you have the 6th round, and then you get Trey Lance, sits behind Kirk Cousins, allows himself to get a little bit healthier, learn from Kirk. He has been working with Patrick Mahomes in the offseason. He's doing the right things in order to prove to people, I'm still that guy. I had a lot of bad breaks, and there's a lot of positive upside to that with Lance. Now, it has to be for the right price, and I understand you probably will have to give up that 1st-round pick. But you give up the 1st-round pick, you get a quarterback, hopefully of the future, and you add more picks later in the draft, because right now you're only sitting at, 5 draft picks?
Yes.
So you add more draft picks, you get the 2nd, you get the 3rd, you're able to build with the defense. So this is actually, if this were to happen, yes, I would do this in a heartbeat, stamp of approval, get it done. Do I think the Vikings should make that trade for the right price? And you really got to understand that if you want this guy to be your future, you got to be absolutely, positively sure he's going to be that guy. And he's got a lot of upside, and I like him a lot. We like him on the show and whatnot. But we have to wonder, too, maybe San Fran seeing something that they don't like. But they gave up a lot of draft capital to get him. So let's not forget that as well. I'd say it's got my stamp of approval. But I also want to, say as well, you have to be 1,000% sure this is going to work. So that's just my thoughts on it. Voldy, what do you think?
I obviously looking at it face value and looking at the potential, I don't know if this is a good or a bad trade for the Vikings' sake, and also for Trey Lance as well, because there isn't enough to say if Trey Lance is a bad NFL quarterback or not. First year came in, obviously, a couple gadget plays here and there, played a couple of sparse games, nothing too yay or nay about. And then this season, he was going to be built as the starter. He gets hurt early on, and the vicious cycle at quarterbacks for San Francisco continued. And again, not really much to say yay or nay about. Yes, there were some struggles early on, but if he plays a full season, or at least plays 3/4 of a season, you could at least say, is he a good or a bad quarterback? Is it the system? I don't know. He gets hurt. You don't really know what to expect of it. So basically, you're just going off some secondhand numbers as well and what he's done in the past to get him to this point. Is he worth a first-round draft pick? I would say yes. Obviously, he was a first-round draft pick. The playability is there that he has put up in his career too, at least from college into now. There are a lot of naysayers about it. There are some people that say this would be a great trade for the Vikings, given the fact we don't know what Kirk Cousins is going to end up doing, after this season, the season after, or what have you. If, the front office and the coaching staff wants to bring in the quarterback that they want, as opposed to another front office's quarterback too, because we've already seen this offseason that the Vikings have just unloaded dead contracts, dead weight as well, cut players left and right, brought in a couple of guys here and there. But this draft obviously is going to be one to take note of as well, because after a full NFL season with Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah as well, this is going to be, a draft class to remember. Yes, obviously last year was their first draft class, but this one is probably one they take note of as well, because they're going to be looking at a lot more of their guys as opposed to looking at what they've been seeing through another team's eyes too. And it's going to work well for the 49ers, and if they would get Nick Mullins back, because obviously he's been there before, he's played a few times here and there. And the Eagles, it's not like they're hurting for players right now. They're just looking for more stock and more picks as well. And I think the big thing for the Vikings too would be, obviously you do get a young quarterback to come in that is going to be more ready to play now, or at least maybe a season in learning from another coach on the field, as would be Kirk Cousins too. Not saying that Kirk Cousins is a bad player, but he's definitely at that caliber of which he can be a coach on the field to at least get Trey Lance acclimated to the system and everything a lot quicker than it would be elsewhere as other quarterbacks. And just getting more picks too. I think the Vikings and the draft team there would be very very happy if they would have more picks in their arsenal too. So I mean, it's got my stamp of approval. I just can't say if it's good or going to be bad or not if the Vikings do get Trey Lance.
Right, and that's the gamble that you have to take on this. And whether or not if KOC can do it, great. If he can't, then it just kind of all depends. It wouldn't surprise me if they went and got him, and it's great and everything, but I think there is a lot of hesitation from the fan base, and I think you have to be aware of that. So before we move on to our next one, will the guest of 2021 be hopping on soon? Well, the guest of 2021, which I believe you're referring to as Cole Munson, has got to stop ducking me. I mean, he's been ducking me, especially during this time with the Wolves. I mean, for goodness sake, we got to hopefully get something going here and win tonight. I mean, I think they were going to get swept, so hopefully we get Cole on here soon to talk about that. But yes, I have been in contact, and yes, we have been talking about it. So it's going to happen. Just wait. It will. And you will be the first to know, Alex, when that does. So, all right. Next one, Voldy.
Well, it looks like Major League Baseball has got a new suitor for a potential new franchise, as well as a group in Salt Lake City, Utah. Big League Utah has now thrown their hat into the ring, led by longtime Jazz owner Gail Miller, along with the likes of Nashville and Portland, in lobbying to join the current 30 Major League Baseball franchises and organizations. Now, this coming off the tail end of which, over the last year or so, that maybe the Oakland Oakland Athletics would be relocating to Las Vegas due to dwindling numbers in attendance and aging infrastructure as well. And just overall, just not good baseball in Oakland as of late. And now just throwing their hat into the ring, this gaining a lot more muster than it has been with Portland and Nashville. That's, been kind of in the spotlight, or at least for a lack of spotlight as well. Now with even quite possibly of which, you throw in another team that's been dealing with some issues in Tampa Bay with their old ballpark, but it looks like they're going to be getting a new ballpark very soon as well, that have been talking about splitting time between obviously Tampa Bay and even playing games in Montreal too. But that doesn't seem to be more likely than happening, because that was vetoed by the likes of Major League Baseball in recent years. So is it absurd or prove the possibility that Salt Lake City could get an MLB franchise before Las Vegas, or even quite possibly the return of Montreal as well?
Ooh, that's a good question. And before we hit that real quick, Cole needs to explain himself about the Ben Simmons trade. Yeah, he does. He does. And he's got to explain himself about Ricky Rubio as well. But that's another story for another time. We're in ARA right now, so we don't talk about Ricky. But anyway, Voldy, why is it taking so long for Montreal before I even get to Salt Lake?
I don't know.
Why isn't that getting done? Expos, we all love the Expos, and let's bring it back.
They just need a new ballpark is the thing.
Yeah,
they play the exhibition games in Olympic Stadium, and you can only play a couple games there because it's literally falling apart, and they just need a new downtown ballpark. And I don't know if they want to fork over the cash for the new ballpark, unless there's going to be a guarantee that new an MLB franchise would come to Montreal.
So I guess we'll keep our eye on that. But as for Salt Lake City, I mean, I think it's a good town. I think you can definitely, have a professional baseball team there. Obviously, you have the Jazz there, but I think that's it, isn't it? The Jazz, if I'm not mistaken.
Utah, yeah, that's about the only thing that comes to mind.
Obviously, you got the college.
The Utes, yeah. I mean, collegiately, they've been very successful too. I mean, let's just say, Salt Lake City isn't, just this little dot on a map. They hosted the Olympics,
BYU,
2002 Winter Olympics. I mean, they're looking at quite possibly hosting in the next, 2030 or 2034, quite possibly.
So it wouldn't surprise me. I think they definitely could. I think you definitely, I would say, stamp of approval. You have to factor in that this city is something that can be a big baseball town, and I think going with a specific name and things like that. So, but. If it were me, obviously it'd go Montreal, then maybe Salt Lake. Because Vegas, it's like, do they even care who's playing? Like, the Vegas Raiders. I mean, yeah, you still have some people coming from Oakland and whatnot, but I mean, Vegas. I'm not not convinced on Vegas. And yes, Vegas, the Golden Knights have been very good. They're in the playoffs and whatnot. But, I don't like Vegas teams. I don't know what it is, but I don't know what it is. But
you disrespect the Golden Knights. I don't like that.
Well, I mean, rivals with the, Wild, too. So,
right, true. I understand that, yes.
So, I'll say this. Stamp of approval, but Montreal first. We'll go with that. Montreal first. Voldy, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they're in this race to begin with is very surprising. I never would have figured that Salt Lake City would be in the race, or at least, concerning to bring Major League Baseball to them as well. They do have the Salt Lake Bees, which is a AAA affiliate of the Angels, too. They do fairly all right, which is, they're the top 20 in attendance as well. And, other than the Jazz, that's really all they have there in Salt Lake City to begin with as well. We talked about the sports, they've done all right for themselves too, but you throw in the possibility that Rob Manfred even threw out too, I think this past July, he'd love to see Major League Baseball to get to 32 teams. Well, you're at 30 right now. So which two is it going to be? Is it going to be Montreal? Is it going to be Portland, Nashville? Quite possibly Vegas, or is it going to be Salt Lake City and another team or another city as well? Charlotte, North Carolina. Haven't even talked about them as well.
Point.
I mean, they could be the Charlotte Jordans for all we know, because we know that Michael Jordan would probably throw his hat into the ring on that one. Even though he wants to sell not the Bobcats, but the Hornets as well.
Yeah.
His stock in that team. But I mean, there are definitely very interesting situations here. I don't see Salt Lake City getting on the higher end, the possibility of getting a major league franchise. I would certainly hope that Montreal, because they do have that baseball history, even though majority of their history, if not all of it, is still with Washington. I know having another team internationally would be great. They played exhibition games in Montreal. Heck, there might be a team in Puerto Rico or even the Dominican before there might be a team in Salt Lake City. Is it absurd or approved? I think it's absurd. I don't think Salt Lake City gets a team before Vegas or Montreal to begin with.
Well, I think the big markets and everything, which, I mean, I get from that standpoint, but I just, Can we just stop with the Vegas teams? I'm done.
Vegas got the infrastructure, I'll say that much.
They do. They do. I do agree with that. So.
I don't know what Vegas would do with a baseball team is the thing. Football, hockey, pretty self-explanatory.
Sure.
NHL's been doing stuff in Vegas for years. Football's always big in Vegas as well, whether it be gambling or even the college team as well. I don't know what Vegas would do with baseball is the thing.
Yeah. I guess another story for another time. But next one, Voldy.
Well, it looks like we could quite possibly see the end of an era, thankfully. The commies might be getting sold here very soon. Washington Commanders owners Dan and Tanya Snyder have reached a preliminary non-exclusive agreement to sell the franchise to a group led by Josh Harris, who is a co-owner in the NBA and NHL, for a record $6.05 billion, as it was reported this past week as well. Now, this is not Josh Harris, the former NBA basketball player.
Right.
Can confirm. Always confused me when they started talking Josh Harris. But the non-exclusive preliminary agreement. So basically throw out all the adjectives to say, oh, there's a deal, but there's not a deal at the same time. Has not been fully financed, but is fully financed, I should say. So $6 billion is right there on the table, but the agreement has not been signed, as there's still another group that could quite possibly swoop in and steal the deal from underneath Josh Harris and group as well. But is it absurd or approved? Will this deal come through with the commies being sold to Josh Harris? I don't know a specific timeline of things. Could we quite possibly see it before the kickoff of the 2023 season?
Well, that's a great question. But, Voldy, it's been a long time. It's been a really long time. And we've been calling it ever since we've honestly started the show. That I think even back to our Sports Zone days, we've been saying this. But finally, the chickens have come home to roost on Dan Snyder. He's finally selling the team. Washington Commanders fans, stand up. I give you claps. That bad man is hopefully selling this, or sounds like he will sell this team, and he'll be gone. And you can start over with Josh Harris and that group and have a more positive trajectory. No more all this, toxic workplace, sexual assault, things like that. It's all gone with Dan Snyder. One of the worst owners in the NFL of all time. And now that this is coming into fruition, but the most Dan Snyder thing that could happen at this point, Voldy, is that he backs out. That he backs out. And I just got a strange feeling that he's just toying with people. But at the same time, we heard the reports that they've cleaned out everything from what they, had with the Washington Commanders and everything like that. So that makes me believe that this is going to happen. So yes, it has my stamp of approval. Now, when is a different conversation. But the fact that they have this deal in place, I think could come sooner than later. Before the season, I'll give it my stamp of approval because, I mean, you either get it done or you don't. And if you're at the stalemate, I mean, what are you going to do, right? So, yeah, it's got my stamp of approval. I mean, especially him finally selling this team. The thing is that he gets a lot of money in return, so he's probably like, yeah, I'm gone, but I got all this money, so you can't do anything to me. But
Right.
Well, money can't buy you happiness, Dan, and it certainly didn't when you were with the Washington Commanders. So, yeah, it's got my stamp of approval, Voldy. I think it's going to happen, and it will happen hopefully soon. So,
yeah,
Voldy,
it really comes down to the timing of everything as well, because it looks like the deal for the Commanders is not going to be improved until the league meetings, which is going to be, believe it or not, next month.
Perfect.
In Minneapolis, May 22nd through the 24th. So put that on your calendar as well. But it's got to get approved by the finance committee. We'll look at the documents. Then it's put up by the vote of the other 31 NFL owners as well. And hopefully they all vote yes, get him the heck out of here. So that way we can all live in merriment as well. So I guess the timing wise, I would say hopefully it's before kickoff as well. And then what's going to be the next process? What do you do? Do you rebrand the team from the rebrand to the rebrand? Do you build a new stadium? I think the new stadium is definitely going to have to be taken to high consideration as well. What do you do in the meantime? Do you just play on FedEx Field with that, graveyard that is a football field for FedEx Field? I mean, there's a lot of question marks with that. That does include, because the deal would include FedEx Field and the practice facility as well. So you tear that all down, build it back up. Where's the team going to play in the meantime? I don't know over that process. But will the deal come through? Absolutely. Unless this Canadian guy, Steve Estapopoulos, I believe his name is. The guy in Canada. Hey, who knows? Maybe the team will move to Canada. That would be fun to see. I don't know. But the fact that a deal hasn't been fully reached as of yet, I mean, there is a deal, but it has yet to be approved, I think, is kind of the big thing too. But I think the deal will come through. It's got my stamp of approval.
The fact that it's happening in Minnesota, Minneapolis, with the league meetings is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Voldy, when you said that, I'm marking my calendar, and I might even take a sign and go over there and say,
please do.
Yeah, I mean, how funny would that be? Just go, wherever that meeting's at, and just hold a sign saying "F you, Dan Snyder" or something like that. I don't know. Just to kind of drive him bonkers. And who knows? He probably tunes into the show. No, he probably doesn't. But
I hope he does.
I hope he does.
Get him on. Bring him on the show.
Yeah.
Bring him on.
I mean, he probably will hop off after like 10 seconds of us ripping
Be worth it.
But I don't know. We'll see. So, but yeah, it's got my stamp of approval. It's finally time. It's finally time. So
absolutely.
I'll be glad to be rid of this. But yeah, so we'll see. All right, next one, Voldy.
Sticking with the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles and quarterback Jalen Hurts have reached an agreement on 5 years, $255 million in extension. That does include $179 million guaranteed, as it was approved on Monday, it looks like, as this is, of course, the biggest contract in average annual value in NFL history, with Jalen Hurts leading the Philadelphia Eagles to the Super Bowl, finishing as NFC champions, but does pale in comparison, of course, with Deshaun Watson's $230 million contract signed this past year, which was fully guaranteed as well. Right. Still, in regards to fully guaranteed money, we already know the track record. Jalen Hurts came right in, did perform at a very high level, and obviously getting his team to the Super Bowl this year. And, just finishing just a few plays to the back end of the Kansas City Chiefs. No trade clause also thrown into the mix as well for Jalen Hurts and that extension, a first in Eagles history, believe it or not.
Wow.
But the money speaks for itself. The playability of Jalen Hurts speaks to itself as well. So is it absurd to approve the Eagles will repeat and quite possibly go back to another Super Bowl, if not multiple Super Bowls, with this contract extension that Jalen Hurts has as their quarterback for the future?
Well, first of all, I'm not an Eagles fan, but if I'm an Eagles fan, I'm feeling pretty good about it. You finally have a franchise quarterback you rely on, and I think it's been since, Donovan McNabb, maybe, that you probably have a lot. I think you're going to have a lot of consistency. Obviously, with Wentz, that didn't work out. Foles was a 1-year just kind of the 1 year. Mike Vick, you throw
Kevin Cobb.
Kevin Cobb. You have a lot of those guys.
Josh McCown.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that one. There's a lot going on with that. But the one thing I'll say, too, is I really like him as a player. I enjoy watching him play, especially the plays that he made this year, and especially against the Vikings. Unfortunately, he was quite good. And the guy can squat 500 pounds, and he's a quarterback, and he's strong. He's determined. He makes the right reads, and they came up a little short against Kansas City, but, it's Kansas City, right? So, for them to repeat and go back, that is so tough. And the thing is that probably even right now, a lot of these defensive coordinators are trying to figure out ways to how to stop them, right? Mm-hmm. And not saying that maybe they can't figure it out, because maybe they can't. I don't know. But the one thing I'll say about this, though, is that they lost a lot of guys in free agency. They lost a couple linebackers. They lost Miles Sanders. They lost, a good chunk of their running backs. Yep. Jason Kelsey, fortunately, is coming back. But you have the line. You're able to do that offensively. But I'm worried about this team defensively. Darius Slade definitely has a lot of juice left, I feel like. And they have a good, defensive backs. Their safeties could use a little work, but I get concerned about that defense. I don't know if they'll repeat and go to the Super Bowl. I'll definitely say probably NFC Championship game if I were to put that out there. But I feel like if they add some guys in the draft, then they probably could repeat. But I think they'll probably be back if they don't this year, or maybe the year after. But with the talent that Jalen Hurts has, and the way that the Eagles have handled it, Sirianni's definitely done a great job with the Eagles so far. But let's keep the continuity going. And one other thing I'm going to add, too, is that his agent that he talked with really wanted, she's really good, very good agent that came in. She runs the practice now, and Jalen Hurts, they worked out the deal, and to go from there. So I got to give claps out to her for making that deal. But even though it is the Eagles, and we all Vikings fans feel don't like Eagles fans, and a lot of people don't like Eagles fans, but depending on who you're talking to. But, stamp of approval. The deal, I will say, I'm probably leaning absurd them going back, because it is tough to get back to the big game. Yeah. So, Voldy, what do you think?
Yeah, it's tough, let alone to get your team back in the playoffs, let alone back to the Super Bowl, too. But this team wasn't even fully guaranteed to make the playoffs to begin with. The NFC East was a was just a powerhouse compared to the last few years where it had just been a joke of a division, like the old AFC South days of just like the worst, the best, the worst team is going to get into the playoffs, unfortunately. But like all 4 teams had legitimate playoff chances up until the last couple of weeks of the season. That's how good the NFC East was this year. But, with the Eagles being the front runner, the Cowboys had a good year too. The Giants had a real bounce back year. Even, those commies, they were just a thorn in a lot of the team's sides with old Taylor Heineke leading the charge. Unfortunately not anymore in the nation's capital, but obviously he's done what he's done since he came in the league, and ever since he got replaced in the national championship game as well at Alabama, went to Oklahoma, showed off well into the draft, and got picked up by the Eagles too, came in for Carson Wentz and has balled out ever since then. Getting back to the Super Bowl, it's a long ways there to that point too, but getting your team back in the playoffs, I can certainly say that they'll have a very legitimate chance to get back into the playoffs too. It's to repeat though, that's a tough one. I'm going to say it's absurd as well.
Yep. I think that's what you got to mark it down as, and see what comes in this draft. So we'll see. All right, last one, Volde.
Well, this is an interesting note here on the potential future of some potential players going into the NBA draft, as major changes are coming to the NBA draft landscape. Are a new collective bargaining agreement that came to place, mutually agreed by the NBA and the Players Association, as a 91-page jointly written memo sent out by the NBA and the Players Association to teams and players this Monday was picked up. And apparently there are 2 significant changes to the draft process, which are going to be felt for years to come. Now, becoming not this coming draft, but 2024, all invited players will be required to attend and participate in the NBA draft combine or be ineligible to be drafted until the quote, first subsequent draft for which the player attends and fully participates. So in essence, you got to participate in the draft combine in order to get drafted as well. Now, this also does include such things as medical examinations, sharing a medical history, biomechanical and functional movement testing as well. No idea what that means. Then you go with some of the classic stuff, shooting drills, some performance testing as well. Other things, team interviews, media circuits, player development sessions, things of that sort as well. So this is a very interesting new chapter in how, players that are going to get drafted into the NBA too, because obviously you see a lot of situations too in many other leagues too. Obviously the NFL draft players, top players skip the combine in order to, prepare for the pro day too. And this is another one, the NBA, the combine as well, the draft combine, I should say, making this mandatory. Is it absurd to approve the NBA making the combine mandatory for draft selection, and could we see other leagues follow the same suit as well?
Yeah, I right away, I'd say it's got my stamp of approval. And the reason why I say that is because I feel like with the draft process, unless you're like injured or you have, I think they would make accommodations, or they would probably give exceptions if something unworldly would happen or something like that. But I think that has to be required just because you want to see where these players are at, not only mentally, physically, things like that, so that they're able to know. Knowing medical history too, you got to at least, give that in case that there's something to be concerned about or things like that. So, yeah, I'd say I think they should make it mandatory. And the reason why is because there's too much of unknowns, I feel like, especially with players overseas. And, like a guy like Luka Doncic, obviously he turned out quite well. Kristaps Porzingis is another guy I think of too. So there's a lot of guys that come from the Australian League, or they come from, countries along those lines. And it's just, I would say, in my opinion, that it would make sense. And I think other leagues should follow that. The NFL draft, maybe specific things they don't have to do in case that they don't need to prove anything or, things like that. So I think there's got to be some exceptions, and I think they'll probably have that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's like,
Right.
well, if you're just not going to do it, then you can't get drafted, But it has to be a logical excuse or whatever it is. So, it's got my stamp of approval. I think they should really follow it and, see where it goes from there. So, Voldy, what do you think?
I think this will really help weed out a lot of the guys that, obviously, the one and done guys be like, oh, I'll just go to the NBA. No, I don't have to do the draft. Just draft me. You've seen what I've done in college. You've seen what I've done,
Right.
elsewhere. Just draft me. Don't worry about it. This will help really get some of those players that, maybe double think about going to the draft right away too. But obviously if the talent is there, that's going to speak for itself, and it's going to show up in the draft combine. This is going to be, shedding a lot more light and maybe being a lot more smarter so that teams make the right draft picks, and guys that maybe were, top 10, top 5 draft lottery picks, maybe they fall a little bit further down because there's obviously more access of information and a lot more detail out there for teams to find out. How's he doing the media scrum as well? What's the medical history? What's his time out on the court? Things of that sort. The more information, the better, but sometimes that can be a bit of a naysay as well, and kind of, sometimes is too much information good to begin with. I could definitely see this being a big positive for the NBA, and not saying that the right guys are going to get drafted, but this will certainly put a lot more emphasis in doing your homework and things of that sort too. So, if you don't want to participate in the draft combine, well, guess what? You're not going to get drafted. It's as easy as that. I feel like that's the way it should be in all the leagues too, because what are you hiding? What do you need to hide? Why can't you do everybody else is doing it? What makes you better than them? Because obviously they're here. So what are you hiding? What do you want people not to know, basically? So this has got a big time stamp of approval for me with the draft combine being mandatory in order to get drafted. So,
yep, I think that's the way to go. So hopefully other leagues follow that as well. But I feel like the NFL draft does a good job with that.
Yeah, they do that, and there have even been some rumors and talks as well that maybe the draft combine just isn't much of a thing anymore. I don't know.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe
Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? So that'll do it for ARA this week. Great job, Voldy, as always.
Thanks, sir.
And it's time for some Shield shout-outs. There's a lot happening with Shield shout-outs, some retirements, some signings, things like that. So let's get it going with some Shield shout-outs.
Shield Shoutouts.
All right, Shield, who you shouting out tonight?
Well, I'm going to give a big happy early birthday shout out to my brother, DJ Vold, head coach for the Granite City Lumberjacks, celebrating his birthday on Friday as well. Been a pretty good run as of late for DJ. Of course, winning his 4th Fraser Cup title with the Granite City Lumberjacks just a few weeks ago, and obviously welcoming in a son in Wheeler as well. And, being a family man, and obviously a head coach for the team that he played for, all things are pointing in the right direction for him. So happy early birthday to DJ Vold. We got to get him on the show sometime soon here in the near future on that. Do have to wish a happy retirement as well to Pro Bowl defensive tackle Gerald McCoy, most notably his career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Played in Dallas. He also played in before
Carolina.
They were the Vegas Raiders. He played with the Raiders for a stint as well, but was a terror on the field as well, most notably as a Buccaneer legend in his time. So happy retirement to Gerald McCoy. And do have to give a big Shield shout out heading back to familiar territory. Former Tom Brady clipboard holder Blaine Gabbert, Super Bowl champion, backup quarterback as well. Mizzou legend Blaine Gabbert is he's going to be signing a deal with the Kansas City Chiefs to back up Patrick Mahomes. Made his notable mark in before he made the NFL, playing with the Mizzou Tigers back in the day as well. So a lot of Mizzou fans down in the Kansas City area, so they'll probably welcome him in with open arms. So best of luck to him. Hopefully he can get himself another ring before he rides off into the sunset as well. So that's going to do it for Shield shoutouts here this week.
All right, we got some good shout-outs. Gerald McCoy, always like watching him, and he was a good HBO or Hard Knocks guy, too. I enjoyed watching him and whatnot. And I think he was with the Panthers for a brief stint.
That's right, the Panthers, too.
And then, I'll have to look, where he went after Tampa and whatnot. But Blaine Gabbert, still around, still slinging it, going to Kansas City. So, hey, might as well. Andy Reid make you a pretty good backup. So Chad Henne retiring too. I can't believe that as well. So good for him though. Nice long career. All right, great job with Shield shoutouts as always, Voldy. And that's gonna do it for episode 146. But
awesome.
As we always do, and Voldy, we've got some breaking news.
Yeah, we
Kinda,
do.
sorta. Guys, our new stickers are going to be on their way very, very soon. And, Voldy, we're not going to reveal what's new about them yet. Because I feel
not
like
quite
we should
yet.
just show them before we
should
actually do it. But we have...
Seeing is believing.
Yeah, seeing is believing. And we have plenty to go off of with that and whatnot. But we'll keep our mouths shut. But anyway, with that being said, we got merch, we got stickers, like we said, $2, $3 for the big ones, $2 for small ones. We got shirts, $20, $5 shipping. We've got hats, $20, $5 shipping as well. So we got a lot of merch that we can give out to you. And they're 5 out of 5 stars. They're great. And make sure you check out W2 Performance. Will Rattel hopped on, I think, YouTube or something. He was talking about stuff, so make sure you check that out. Check him out at www.w2performance.com for all that. And thank you to National Fleet Graphic, Crown Rental, and Tyler Knudsen for the stickers, especially the new ones coming in. And thank you to the Victorious POD with Ryan Walter, or no, not with Walters anymore, but with Herman and Jack Vickers. And they're doing a fantastic job. They shout us every their show. They do it once a month, but they will start things up once the football season starts. So there's a lot of draft stuff coming up, and we'll make sure that we get that out to you. So that'll do it for episode 146, and it was a great episode, and we had a lot to talk about. And Voldy, it's time for the puck to drop. It's time for tip-off. Watch a little of the game. We won't blame you if you go to bed early with it, because it's ridiculous that it has to be this late. But national media or the national anything, or the television or people don't care. They don't give a crap about if they started at whatever time. So they're just like, Minnesota, we'll put you at a later time. But it is what it is. So, all right, that's going to do it for episode 146. And remember, as always, folks, keep in the zone.
Holla!
Thank you for watching MinneZona Sports Live. Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. for live show broadcast. And as Voldy likes to say, follow us on all the socials medias.